Yo, what's going on, everybody? I am back with another Keeping It Real podcast, and today I'm all alone. It's the New Year's special, and we're dropping this right before New Year's. We are saying goodbye to 2020. I'm very happy to say goodbye to 2020. You know, it's been a very strange year to say the least, but we're gonna start this podcast off right. And first off, check the links all in my description. Instagram, follow, subscribe to the YouTube right now. Smash that like button, drop a comment, say what's up, say what's going on. What do you want to talk about? Check out the TikTok. TikTok link will be in the description. And yeah, I think that's how we're going to start this one off. We're going to stay nice and calm in this one. We're going to lay the year out in front of you, right? So we're saying goodbye to the 2020 year. We're going to say what's up to 2021. Hopefully 2021 is going to be dope. I personally have a lot of plans in place right now, and I'm pretty excited to start whatever 2021 is going to throw at me. And truthfully, I'm going to attack 2021. I'm not going to let it come at me. I'm attacking the year, so that's pretty dope. That's got to be the mindset. So I recommend anybody who needs their year to start off right, finish the year strong. We got a few days left. I'm recording this now, and I'm posting it tonight because I'm feeling good. I got a podcast on the way with a guest. I got more podcast on deck, so we're ready to go. We're feeling good. If you don't know, you can check out my personal vlogs. My personal vlogs link will be in the description as well. I make like workout videos, thought-provoking videos, adventure, traveling videos. So if you want to check that out, I'm about to be training for an ultra marathon. I'm putting on the miles, feeling good, putting my time in the gym, swinging the kettlebells, learning a lot of different workouts so I can make, informational videos. And also when I podcast and have guests on that are, maybe experienced and pretty high class, maybe athletes or workout, physical people, whatever it may be, fitness enthusiasts. I can hold my own in a conversation. I can hold my own in maybe a workout or something like that. And maybe I can excel in my own thing, you know what I'm saying? So that's definitely what I want to focus on. Podcasting is lit the new year. So basically I started my podcast in 2020. So the year's coming to an end. And the grind just has to get a little bit harder. Personally for myself, it's just me. We in this thing together. So who's ever watching, shout out to you. Thank you very much for watching. It's the slow game. It's the marathon. It's what it is. It's the marathon. Shout out to Nip. When did Nipsey die? 2019 or 18? I was a freshman in high school, so definitely not 2020. Bunch of people died, bunch of rappers. Who knows? Who knows if anything was a conspiracy behind some of those rapper killings. You never know what happens with that. But basically, in this New Year podcast, I'm gonna talk about. I got a list in front of me. We're gonna just chop it up, have some fun, but also we're gonna talk about some stuff that's going on that people don't seem to maybe understand, seem to know, seem to want to look up, or seem to or maybe the looking up is hiding some of this information. So let's lay them out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, first off, the year has been pretty crazy with COVID. In America, you got the whole protest and riots against police brutality and inequality and all that stuff. So it's just been a pretty all in one year. Trump election all in 1 year. It's pretty insane. It's pretty hectic. It's pretty, I don't know. It's got some negative energy. It's been a lot of negative energy for quite a while now. And everybody feels it. It's just what it is. It's in the air. So let's talk about some things. Okay. So here, let me just throw a conspiracy right off the bat. So there's a conspiracy, Antifa versus Trump supporters. The media is supposedly going to get them both riled up. They're going to fight each other and then provoke martial law, and then the government's going to control us all, and that's going to be possibly a plot. Like I said, that's a possible conspiracy. Who knows if that's true? But that was at the top of the page. That was something I totally forgot about, so it's actually funny that I saw that. But so let's talk about something that's actually super important that it doesn't matter where you stand politically. I would say it it shouldn't matter where you stand politically. This is terrible what's going on, and it's terrible what's going on. And then the way it's basically getting swept under the rug is terrible in its own aspect. So let's talk about what's going on in China this entire 2020 year. So basically, coronavirus came from China, right? Apparently, right now, China only had who knows if this is true, only had 5,000 deaths recorded from the coronavirus, which is, if that's true, that's insane. If that's true, that's insane. Maybe you can make a lot of arguments why that's not true. And even if it is true, maybe who knows? Who knows? It's probably not true. Who really knows what's going on with the COVID thing? But besides the fact that it came from China and all of the news and the media that first hit the globe came from China. And like I said, I brought this up before. There's this amazing report that talked about how Twitter and Facebook, well, basically America, 40% of Americans that can vote get their news from Facebook or Twitter. And Facebook owns Twitter and Instagram, so that, you know what I'm saying? So it's all pushing the same narrative. But that being said, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, COVID. I was on Twitter. I think I wasn't on Twitter, but I seen a bunch of Twitter posts early COVID, very early COVID. I don't know if I was on. I don't know if I quit Twitter at that point. I know I was close to quitting Twitter, but very early COVID, as in like November of 2019. I was like seeing things on like the Chinese people, like people that there's one famous, and there's a few videos that got famous, and it's the video of this Asian guy literally standing on the side of the sidewalk and just drops dead. Like he just like, the flu's gonna drop you dead in the middle of the street, right? So that was a political plant by the CCP, right? So the Chinese Communist Party. This article not only goes into how there's a lot, and I've also seen this on Twitter too. So if anyone really has any questions, like, you can kind of just go on Twitter and see it for yourself. I don't really spend time on Facebook. I'm sure it's out there, but there's so many Chinese, possibly Russian as well, but Chinese bots. And these bots are going on and saying all this craziness. When someone posts something thought-provoking, they're the ones that say, oh, you're racist, or you're crazy. They provoke it. So these Chinese bots, there's hundreds of thousands, they're infiltrating Twitter and Facebook. They truly are. And I've seen that. And Rogan talked about that with Professor Eric Weinstein. And they said they noticed that 10 years ago on Twitter and Facebook message boards. And it's so obvious. It's just so obvious. I got a call from Wildwood, New Jersey. They called me last time. I don't know you, so we're going to go. Ready? Decline. Oh, I didn't even hit it, so it's fine. But, yeah, these Twitter bots, and they're promoting the violence. They're promoting. So the idea is that these Twitter bots promoted the idea of all these. They were tweeting at governors, at mayors, at political officials, not just only in America, but in the whole world. They were in different languages. They were the same bots, the same Twitter profiles that were attacking mayors in Wisconsin, were attacking mayors and governors and prime ministers in Canada and South America and Europe. Like, that's terrible. That's big tech attacking us. That truly is terrible. And I've been talking about it. And so that's a big part of what's going on. Take that into consideration. It's very obvious. Like, and anyone who really spends a good amount of time on Twitter and actually just sifting through comments and viral videos and viral posts and then the comments through there, like, it's so obvious. But and the fact that Twitter's really not really doing anything about it. They say they delete a bunch of accounts, but there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of accounts that are straight bots. And that being said, we got Hong Kong. So this year, the virus came from China. All this stuff came from China. The first reports came from China. I don't think we were allowed to go to China and study the virus. That was one of the big things. And then this article goes into a lot of the doctors in the CDC and WHO and the World Health Organization are getting paid to promote Chinese communist ways. Like they not like, oh, Chinese communists, but as in we should thank China for teaching us how to deal with this virus. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm probably going to clip this up, try to post it on TikTok, try to post some clips on my YouTube. And TikTok, sometimes they mute some of my stuff, dude. And it's a shame, bro. Like, it's really a shame because, like, this is what's really going on. They want me and you to argue about, oh, you voted for Trump. Oh, you voted for Biden. Oh, you did this and that. Oh, man, I can't believe you said this you said this in 6th grade. I can't believe you said that. That's misogynistic. Like, dude, like, they just want us to argue about this. Meanwhile, these people are stealing our money and going to war and funding the war and just. So let's keep going into what's going on in China. So you got Hong Kong. So what's going on in Hong Kong, essentially, someone drop in the comments if you're a little bit more educated on what's going on in Hong Kong. I may botch this up a little bit, but I believe it was almost like a sanctuary of English culture. Like back in the day, I think English culture made like a deal with it. Britain, Great Britain, whatever it is, try to get it out. But basically, they were like a small democracy inside of China. They were a small little city inside of China. Maybe they were really big, but still, like the size of China is quite large. So they were a small part of China that was like a democracy. And there was like a contract, and their contract supposedly ended 2019, 2020-ish time. And basically, China, like, these people are kind of like free people. They don't want to live Chinese communist ways. Like, they don't really want to be in communism and basically socialism. Like, history, sometimes history is iffy, but history doesn't really lie when it comes to communism and socialism and this idea of, Marxism. But the CCP is very, very powerful. So they were taking over Hong Kong. So LeBron and these NBA stars are massive. The NBA is huge in China. So while if anybody pays attention to sports, NBA stars during this whole entire year were putting like Black Lives Matter on the back of their things, like stop police brutality, like equality for all, like they could customize anything. And then you could, as a customer, you could buy a shirt. You could customize something, right? You could write "fuck the police." You could. People have tried this, right? You can say "fuck the police." You can say "fuck blue lives don't matter" or some shit like that. But you know what you can't say? You know what you can't? You can't have a shirt that says "Free Hong Kong." You couldn't make a shirt that says "Free Hong Kong," and who is the I think one of the general managers or one of the executive of the boards or something like that of the Houston Rockets. I think he's now at this Philadelphia 76ers. And he called this out. He called out China and Hong Kong, and he got in a lot of trouble with the NBA basically told him to shut up, basically, if you want my opinion. And that's what's going on. So Hong Kong you could look up videos about Hong Kong. Like, I don't really need to explain it to you. It's very serious what's going on in Hong Kong. And I think they're still probably protesting. They still want their freedoms. They don't want to be part of the CCP. And then you got the Uyghur Genocide. So I seen this girl on TikTok, and the thing about politics right now is everybody's arguing. Like the average Joe, I've talked about this before. The average Joe not only gonna fight over the crumbs of the U.S. dollar, we're fighting over the 1% of the dollar. 99% of freaking our dollar is owned by 1% of the people, right? The 99% of the people are fighting each other, scratching each other in the face for 1% of the US dollar. And I've been talking about that. And it's just not a sustainable business plan as a government, truthfully. But that being said, this girl was on TikTok, and she was basically like, oh yeah, like no media is covering what's happening in China and the Uyghurs. And then she's like attacked Trump. She's like, the orange guy you voted in office wants there to be a Muslim ban. And like he did say some of these things, and it was very provocative. It was very it induced a lot of anger, right? But that's also a media spin on what's going on. Like, and Joe Biden is not in bed with China and Chinese government and making money off that. Come on now. He's been a senator and he was a vice president. That's what they do. That's what they do. That's what they all do. It's what Bush did. It's what Obama did. It's what the Clintons did. It's what Hillary did. And she never made it as president. And she was still doing it. She's the real ringleader. Hillary Clinton's the real ringleader. And jeez. And that's what's going on. But there's a massive genocide of. So I think I've talked about this before. I But if you do not know, I believe, and if you know a little bit more information, like I said, drop in the comments, help a brother out. The Uyghur area of China is the almost southwesternly side, but the westernly side of China towards the Middle East, so by Turkey and then all the Middle Eastern countries. And it's not really Chinese ways. They're not really Chinese people. They're more Middle Eastern. They're Muslim, so they believe in Islamic cultures. They have a total different culture than the normal Chinese people that go to school and write, I do everything for the CCP. I love the CCP. And then you can also make a very valid argument that a lot of the information that we get as Americans, I don't know about other people in other countries. I'm sure it's very similar. But the information we get about China is completely distorted. Similar to, not too similar, but you could say similar to how North Korea, Kim Jong-un just they just on TV, they just make fake TV reports like, oh, America is trying to blow us up and kill us. And who knows? Maybe that's fake news too. But I mean, people that escaped North Korea actually talked about that. So it is pretty insane. But that being said, we definitely get a lot of fake news about what's going on in China. We get a lot of propaganda, very similar to Russia. We get a lot of propaganda about Russia. Who knows what's really going on in these countries unless, I guess you have to go there and stuff. And that's why people that travel are low-key super woke. People that travel are just like, dude, you gotta go all these places before you start talking about them. And I gotta hold myself accountable to that as well. You know, I talk about a lot of geopolitics. I don't talk about it, but I also just like learning about it. But like the pyramids, now I gotta go to Egypt. I gotta go to these places. Dude, Egypt is dumb far. now I'm thinking about it. But so the Chinese Communist Party right now, that part of the Uyghur area of China is not really Chinese culture. They don't really live the same lifestyle. And it's the main place of import and export of the, Chinese goods. Chinese has America by the balls financially. And that's a fact. And if you don't want to admit that, truthfully, shame on you. If you're an American and you're trying to better your life and better the people around you, and you can't admit that China has us by the balls, shame on you, and that's just a personal problem you got to deal with. But that being said, China is literally, I think they've already killed a few million Muslims on that side of their country. And they're just genociding them. They're putting them in concentration camps. They're torturing them. Our media is not really covering anything at all about that. They're still pushing out that narrative of more COVID cases going up. More testing going up. People testing positive. It's really a shame what's going on in this country. It's really a shame, and it's so obvious. Like this comedy or this podcast is under a comedy section, right? Normally, I want to be ripping jokes and having a good time. It's a little late night vlog, I put in 3 miles in a long gym session today, so I'm a little tired. You know what I'm saying? But still, it's a shame. Like you get more information from freaking Joe Rogan. You get more information from freaking Joe Rogan and a bunch of other comedian podcasts than you do from the news, and that's not, like I said, that's not as much as you could argue this, that, the third, who owns this, who owns that. At the end of the day, I say this to my dad, that's a bad business plan. That's not a good business plan. That's a unsustainable business plan, because once enough people find out, they're going to be fed up with that. So, but yeah, the Chinese Communist Party is killing millions of Muslims, and no one's talking about it. Nobody talked about it in the election. Trump didn't bring it up. Biden didn't bring it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, You got to hold them accountable. You got to hold them accountable. And they're not saying anything. These massive corporations, everyone on ESPN, there's a genocide going on in this world. And there's nothing. Genocide of millions for their religion, based on their religion, because it's going to help China. It's going to help the Chinese Communist Party spread their wits because they want to be the new world order by 2035. And that's not a conspiracy. That's communism. That's socialism. That's dictatorship, basically. And it's really terrible. It's really terrible. Let's see what else we got on the list. People, yep. And this is a big factor too. And anyone who's still watching this, and first off, thank you for watching. Shout out to you. But anyone that I see a lot of people that they're almost, because that's the thing. The average person is literally just arguing politics or social problems, usually out of good intention. Like, people can argue with each other, but a lot of times, unless you're a troll or you're trying to piss people off, if you're really trying to get down to an answer and find some truth, you're going to be looking out of good intentions, right? You might disagree. You might angrily disagree. You might get in an argument, whatever it may be, but it's still out of good intentions. So that's what's kind of sad about everything that's going on is the average person, like I said, scrounging for the 1% of the freaking American dollar. And, we're arguing with each other out of good intentions, So it's sad. It's sad. But, people, I see all the time on social media, people seem frustrated and they can't understand how Trump won or why anyone would vote for Trump, right? And they make solid arguments. They make the arguments, usually policy-wise, they don't make the arguments, but socially, what's going on? They make valuable arguments, right? He's a dick. He's an asshole. He's arrogant. He's an egomaniac. They all are. Anyone who wants to be the president, basically the most powerful country in the world, most powerful, is an egomaniac. A little bit of water got tickled. But yeah, people can't understand how did this guy win? How did anyone vote for Trump? And you got to understand, I'm young talking about this, but you got to look back a little bit. Clinton, Bush, Obama, they were so bad. You got to think about this. They were so poor. They were so bad to our country, truthfully, that Trump won. Trump ran, talked shit about them, and beat them. That's what you have. That's what you were given. You were given the stereotypical. And then they make this whole thing oh, now we got to vote for Biden. We had Biden. He was the vice president. What did he do? He basically helped make mass incarceration. And they all profit off it. They profit off these wars in the Middle East. They profit off the oil, off the heroin epidemic. They do. To say they don't, shame on you. Shame on you to say shame on you to be so naive about that too. That's the one thing. It's very obvious. It's very the nuclear Iran deal. So the Paris Agreement, we could talk about the Paris Agreement because a lot of people want to say we should be protecting our Earth, global warming. First off, global warming is a very complicated subject. It is. You should watch geologists talk about this and deglaciation or glaciologists, right? Glaciologists. I think that's what they do, right? They study glaciers and stuff like that, how they form, how they melt, where they come, how do they move, how do big-ass rocks end up in the middle of, on the top of a mountain, probably from deglaciation, right? What's a cataracts? Deglaciation, okay? Massive waterfalls from deglaciation, all right? But these people can argue that the ice sheets and the massive iceberg, basically the icebergs were melting in the early 1800s, 1900s, right? And that's what it is. But is it a valid argument to say that we should take care of our beautiful ecosystems around us and our animals and our water and stop? Is there forest? Is there deforestations, forestations? Yeah, that's terrible. These wildfires happening in California. I think that's actually more natural than you think, truthfully. That's why the redwoods in California, those trees don't burn, their bark is made not to burn. And there's a lot of stories that Native Americans used to live in the fires, in the aspect of they understood you would have to burn it down for you to put the nutrients back in the ground to their grow things and grow new trees and grow new crops and stuff like that. And it would be easier to hunt. So you would go to a forest, right? If it's all dried up, you could, and it make a lot of noise, I guess, I don't know. But, and it's hard to hunt, and you could also become prey. You would burn down the forest, right? Also, there's a lot less people in the world when you're Native American, right? But you would burn down the forest, and then you would hunt the animals in the open land. You would chase them out the woods. It's actually mad interesting. And, but yeah, they would live in the fires. They knew you would, some areas you would have to burn. You would have to burn, or you could get caught in a fire and it could be unstable. And they would sometimes practice that. So that's pretty interesting to learn about as well. But that being said, the Paris Agreement, I believe it's the Paris Agreement, and it's all the United Nations, all the countries trying to get together, and it's like $120 trillion to fix the CO2 emission. And that's not what it is. That's why Trump said no. And a lot of people are like, oh. No, what he said no is because they weren't trying to stop CO2 emission. They're just trying to tax corporations and companies. So like you put out CO2 emission, you get a certain amount. If you go over that, now we're really going to tax you a lot. And if you don't use as much as that, you can sell your CO2 emission capacity, I guess, to another corporation that wants to put out more. And they would just tax these people. They would just tax the corporations. They're not going to change CO2. It's just a big money grab. And Trump called that out, and that's true. That's true. Why are we going to be in $120 trillion, I think. That's the goal. And the main countries, if you look at America's CO2 carbon footprint, in this the carbon footprint of America throughout the whole entire world, compared to the whole entire world, it's on a super minuscule scale. If you look at China, it's through the roof, and a lot of South American countries, I think, and small African countries that just like don't take care of like their rivers and stuff. I think it's South American countries more, probably where they do the cocaine and they make the cocaine, they pour the gasoline and all the sludge and all that residue, whatever it may be. But yeah, and also probably a lot of these countries have a lot of like almost like dictatorships, so they just don't take care. They have a lot of people doing a lot of things, but they just don't care. They just don't take care of the people, which is just a damn shame. Hillary Clinton donating all that money. I talked about this before. Hillary Clinton Foundation donating all that money to Haiti. Haiti didn't really get any of it at all. That's criminal. That's criminal, and that's what's going on. Also, word on the street, before COVID, New Zealand had a mass shooting. If anybody's watching this from New Zealand, drop in the comments. Let me know if this is true. Word on the street, New Zealand had a mass shooting, and they basically took all the guns away from the citizens and then went on COVID lockdown. I don't know how true that is. Your boy's not in New Zealand. I actually was on Omegle making some TikToks, and I came across these two girls, and they asked me where I was from, and they said they were from New Zealand, but I doubt they knew what was going on, so that's okay. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but yeah, I think that's what's going on. So that's basically that, and that's what happens a lot of times. There's a podcast with Joe Rogan, Brett Weinstein, and Jordan Peterson, and this was from years ago. This is from like 4 or 5 years ago, and they're talking about how when countries go through epidemics, pandemics, financial crises, the government tends to do what they can to fix things, but they actually just tighten government control, tighten authoritarian control, authoritarian legislation, and that's what they do. And it's been proven in history. So when people try to back certain ideas or question certain things, you shouldn't call them crazy or, oh man, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. They're like, so take this. Project Red Wings or something like this. I forget exactly what the name was, but Rogan talks about it all the time. It's I think the CIA was trying to blow up an airline carrier, possibly a drone, and then either they were going to blow up a drone and then act like it was a real one, or they were going to actually blow up a real one. Not quite sure, but they were going to blow up an airline, and they were going to blame it on Cuba. They were going to blame Cuba and say that Cuba blew it up, and then we were going to go to war with Cuba. And the idea is that JFK said no to that. He didn't like that. And but JFK's brother said he would do that. But then when they killed JFK, JFK's brother was like, nah, he was mad that happened. But and that's the word on the street. That's not the word on the street. That's a declassified information right there by the FBI. The FBI declassified that. So that's what's going on. So if they're willing to, if the CIA and the super high ups and whoever they are, when people are like, oh, they're pulling the strings, man. They're doing the protest and they're making the riots and they're doing this. It's they, man. Those people are crazy. Those people are running the world. I kind of forgot where I was going with this, low key. I forgot once I started saying all these people. I tried to get in the voice too much. But yeah, they're basically, authoritarian control. They're just tightening down, slowly and surely. They just want to control us, keep us inside, not going to work. Eventually, AI robots are going to take all those bullshit jobs that half of America has anyways. Half of America can't even pay their way with these fucking jobs that they're gonna give to robots anyways. So that's arguably what's going on. Let's keep going. Big banks, the same banks that got fucking bailed out, the same banks that got bailed out and paid hundreds of millions and billions of dollars for failing the U.S. economy, knew about Epstein and these massive child pedophilia schemes because they were probably involved as well, but also they knew about them and they basically helped just move the money around. They didn't really care about him being illegal or it being a legal activity, hundreds of the millions of dollars, and they didn't care. The banks helped them hide certain things in law and certain court cases and stuff like that. So that's what's going on. The same banks, the same big banks that get, and you know what I found out about the 2008 crisis? These fucking racists. This is what they are. It's what it is. They would go to low-income communities, predominantly black-owned and minority-owned, and they would ask them if they wanted to refinance their mortgage, right? And usually it was middle of the day, so it was like older grandmas and older people would answer the door, and they wouldn't really know what the fuck is going on, so they would sign these fucking things, and then so they would refinance, and they would basically, but at the end of the month, you're gonna have a little bit of extra cash for yourself. Little did they know, in a few months, once they increased the interest rates, their $400, $500 mortgage would turn to $7,000 sometimes. That's what these big banks are doing, man. That's what these big banks are doing. So so let me just say it too loud so my parents don't get mad, because it is what it is. So when a big bank goes to you and tells you to take out a loan for a mortgage, you take out the biggest loan you can get because that's your only tax write-off. Like, yeah, Tim Dillon makes comedy skits about that, but the banks are fucking you. The banks, it's a good deal because the bank told you it's a good deal? Exactly. Think about that for a little bit before you take your parents' advice about finances and stuff. And it's okay. It's what it is, you know what I'm saying? You just got to elevate yourself and your surroundings, and you just got to think for yourself. That's the biggest thing with this whole entire year. You got to think for yourself. Do not let anybody tell you what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Are you wearing a mask? Did you take your vitamins today? Well, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to walk around with a bag of vitamins. Did you take your vitamins today? All gung-ho over here. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about, this hasn't happened in a while. Knock on wood. There aren't really many gatherings. I haven't paid attention too much, but any really large mass shootings, thank God, school shootings. Schools hasn't really been in session. A lot of online things. Suicide, depression has gone through the fucking roof. No one wants to talk about that. Anxiety, TTR through the roof. But not a lot of huge mall shootings and school shootings, which is good news in life terms. But in the reality terms, a lot of the media likes to spin it for the guns. They try to take the guns. It's the guns. These kids got illegal guns. They got guns at gun shows. They steal their parents' guns. They got these big ARs. They go and it's the big guns. It's the big guns. It's the military guns. It's the semi-automatic guns. Right now, this video is probably gonna get banned for shadow ban because I said it so many times. But they never talk about how every single one of these people get test positive for pharmaceutical, psychiatric drugs. I can't even say it. And it is. And every single time they do, they test positive for pharmaceuticals every single time. And the news doesn't report that once. So it's like, I'm sure, well, you could probably find one news report of someone saying it. But the mainstream news, the ABC, the CBS, the CNN, the MSNBC, they don't do it. I don't know about Fox News because Fox News tries to sometimes, but they're fake as hell too. It's all fake news, bro. It's like you turn on a channel and they're giving you the information that you need. You know what I'm saying? That's how it was in the 60s and the 80s. Like you would go to one channel and even then, the anyone who's really smart knows that's how people in history controlled the masses. You write a newspaper, right? You write the newspaper and it's the head of it is, oh, Alexander Hamilton's a scam. And then he's fucking Aaron Burr. I don't even know if that's the real story. I got the book. I'm about to read it. It's a huge book. Shout out to my aunt. But still, they would just make fake news about politicians in the newspaper. You don't think these top politicians, when TV's coming out and cable news is all coming out, it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. And that's why you got to actually just read. Once you start really reading certain literature, you're like, oh shit, like some of this shit has some real validation right now. Some of it is really, really big. But yeah, they never talk about the psychiatric drug use. It's a lot of the SSRIs, the antidepressant, anti-anxieties right now with COVID. But even not just COVID. I read this book, The Coddling of the American Mind. Absolutely amazing book for anybody. I'm 20 years old. Anyone in and around my range of age, if you're less than 40 years old, even if you're 40, bro, read The Coddling of the American Mind. Absolutely just mind opening. Just like sometimes like you're looking for like a little answer, right? And that's just like, okay, you know what I'm saying? That's like cutting open the potato. And then now you got to put the cream on eventually, but that's other information you got to get, you know what I'm saying? I don't eat potatoes with sour cream, but I was thinking of an analogy. But yeah, that book was absolutely just eye-opening into like what's going on into my generation. It's called Generation Z. I think it's Generation Z, but post-millennial generation. Millennials are low-key people that were growing up in the new year, so growing up in the 2000s. I was born on 2000, so a little bit different. It's more like iGen, so anyone 1995 and up were basically internet generation, and we grew up through the internet, and our whole lives basically have kind of perceived through social media, and our lives are completely different than people older and around us. Also, parenting, news, the way people get news, or the way people parent their kids, a lot more safetyism, basically helicopter parents, a lot more of that, and it leaves kids, this is the biggest thing, it leaves kids with, by the time like they're 18, they're 20 years old, they low-key are a few years behind mentally because they don't have enough unsupervised human interactions. They don't have enough unsupervised human interactions. So like, yeah, bullying and shit is bad, but at the end of the day, dude, like there's some bad kids out there and they do take it out on other weaker kids, and that's messed up. But at the end of the day, like a little bit of teasing and stuff, you got to learn how to handle teasing. You got to learn how to handle some of these things, like girls fucking kicking you out of the clique. You got to learn how to deal with that, and meeting other people that, you know, whatever, meeting people, arguing about sports, arguing about maybe you grow up a little bit, then you argue about intellectual things, about history and stuff like that. That's the whole idea of going to college, is you want to argue your classmates' ideas. Not argue, but you want to both push each other's intellect, right? But when someone, and nowadays we're living in a generation where people that are offended by a certain idea says you can't say that, now we're taking away free speech and the amendment. So like that's not how to grow intellectually, right? That's not how to grow as a person. That's not how to grow thinking skills, adult skills, coping mechanisms, how to deal with fucking stress and bad situations. So nowadays we live in a culture where it's just less, you got when you're playing tag and you're swinging on the monkey bars, you got 3 old ladies that are lunch ladies and they're watching you, making sure nobody's getting pushed, making sure nobody skips the line. You know what I'm saying? If Jack skips the line, you and the homies got to tell Jack, like, bro, get in the back of the line, son. We're playing knockout. You know what I'm saying? And you guys are only 5, 6, 7 years old, but that's important for your mental growth. So when people take that away from you, you lose independence, you lose freedom. You know what I'm saying? That's what I was sometimes you get mad by yourself, right? You just start thinking about things and you're talking by yourself. I'm a talkative guy, so some people might be quiet thinking about themselves, but sometimes I just talk. I don't even care. But like, that's the only thing we really have in this world, right? Is the idea of freedom, the idea that nobody really tells me what to do, how to think, how to live. And if they do, I'm still going to do what I want to do because I can, right? And that's the idea of freedom. And that's powerful. Like, that gives hope to a lot of things. Like, you can change your situation if you're in power of your life and you have some people, most people are, the idea is that we're all in control of our lives. A lot of people let their lives spiral out and they're not really in control, but that's another conversation. But the idea is that we really are in control of our lives. And the moment someone tries to tell us how to think, or we have to think a certain way, we can't explore ideas. Like, whoa, bro, now you're in, and that's what communism and socialism does, like fascism, like people scream, Trump's a fascist, all that. Like, baby girl, like, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, relax. These people are, these speakers come to colleges and they shut them down and they scream, fascist. All these speakers, speak misogynistic, like, because they're speakers that are pushing their intellect, thought really deep ideas. Like, Jordan Peterson talks about some deep stuff. Not all of it, like, life isn't all peaches and cream. It's not. You know what I'm saying? So to act like it is, and then to reassure our children and the people around us, life's just a bunch of peaches and cream, and if there's any darkness, like, you gotta get those people out of your life. Like that's not reality. Like, how much, like, think about this truthfully. How often do you think to yourself, like, oh man, I'm happy right now. I'm feeling good. Great day. Like, that moment of, like, you literally realize you're so happy, you almost realize, like, damn, bro, I'm having a good ass day. Otherwise, you're mostly just, like, sifting through the day. You're just going through, right? That's flow. That's how humans are supposed to live. You're supposed to go through the day. And the moments you're not really doing anything, you're sitting thinking about it. So this is where anxiety builds up. This is a big thing too. A lot of people, a lot of that genetic argument, like, it's nice. I understand it. There's no hope in telling someone, oh, you're genetically disposition and you have this, that, and the third genetically. You know what I'm saying? You're at a disadvantage genetically. That gives people the cop out. It gives them the mental cop out. And David Goggins talks about this all the time. Like, if you mentally believe in yourself, that's the most powerful thing you have. Fuck genetics, DNA. If you can somehow tap into your mind the way it's supposed to tap in, is the way you can tap into, and everybody goes to sleep with regrets and I should have done this today. I could have probably pushed it this. And then those certain days where you really get everything grinded out and you feel good, like, that's the way life is. You're supposed to keep moving. You're not supposed to, and this is why this is my little theory. So a lot of people say the alignment happened up, right? So Saturn and Jupiter lined up, and that was the first time in 800 years. It's a big thing. The idea is that a lot of people believe that we were living in the third dimension, and now we're going to be living in the fourth and fifth dimension. And there's some people that believe that there's 365 dimensions, right? And there's 365 dimensions, and we're just living in the third one. And apparently, after this celestial observation, these planets lined up. We changed. I think we went into Aquarius, right? As a globe, the precession of our equinox, and the precession of the equinox, and our precession of the equinox. I think it would be referred to correctly, and yeah, basically we're going into the fourth, fifth dimension. So what does that mean? Who really knows? Is that true? Who really knows? There's probably some people like, oh, I know, bro. I'm woke as hell. Like on TikTok, like I'm woke as hell. Like, okay, buddy, you know what I'm saying? Keep it moving. But what I think low key is I was talking to my friend as well. The idea is that it is in ancient books. It is in ancient stories. The ancients knew about the precession of the equinox, the rotate, the axis, where we are in our solar system was important to our ancient ancestors. And the fact that they could do all this, they built the pyramids before they fucking built a wheel, before they invented the wheel, like that's interesting. You know what I'm saying? That's interesting. That's thought provoking to say the least. And the idea is that our consciousness may or may not advance. Maybe it's a process of evolution in our species. Maybe it's a process of evolution in our whole entire solar system, in our world, in our globe. But the idea is that our consciousness maybe is taking another leap. And could that lead to catastrophe? Could that lead to bliss? Could that lead to world war? Could that lead to world war and then utopia? Who knows? What I'm starting to think is maybe the whole idea of consciousness. So like the Mayan calendar, a lot of it's like based off the Mayan calendar, and the Mayan calendar, like some of these things, like they're off just a few years. They're off just a few years. They're off just a few tens of hundreds of 100 years. They're off. So some of these celestial accounts are not always the most accurate. That's why people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's an astrophysicist, sometimes I don't want to say discredits, but like kind of, jokes with the astronomy community, the astrology community, because there is a lot of causation equals correlation, right? That's a lot of science, to be honest. But that's for another podcast. But the idea that maybe is true, maybe not, is after reading that book, if maybe the alignment isn't exactly so, like they say, so a lot of the people were like, the day after December 21st, December 22nd is going to be the day where life changes. Life really didn't change, you know what I'm saying? If you believe it's going to change, that's really powerful in and of itself. I was explaining that to my friends. Like, no matter if it's real, if it's fucking whatever the fuck is going on, whatever you think is going on, there's people that full on believe that. So that's powerful. Like I said, we all know the mind is very powerful. So like that's religion. Like people go to war because they believe in different gods. Like, so if these people believe the world is going to change and they're fucking, yeah, the world's going to change. We got to clean up our lives. We got to meditate, whatever it may be. That's just a powerful thought. The fact that they think that's powerful in and of itself. But, what I tend to maybe I'm just reaching, and these are just like fun thoughts, but maybe like our whole, like me and Ben talked about this. Nowadays we're like, it wasn't always like this, but especially our generation, we're living in so much abstract thought. We're just living in thought. And that's where anxiety comes from. You're just thinking about the future. You're not living in the moment. You're not worrying about you're not sad about the past or, oh, the past, I wish I didn't do that, right? You're not doing that. Like, that's more like depressive type of stuff, right? Like, oh, shit. I mean, that's just the coding. But seriously, when you start thinking about the future and like, oh, I don't know what the future is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I'm about to go to work and I don't know what's going to happen. My boss, I'm about to show up late. Like, oh, shit, I overslept last night and I went out when I wasn't supposed to go out, whatever it may be. But the idea of the future that we don't know about, we won't know about, and we can't control gives us anxiety, right? That's why a lot of Stoicism, like Marcus Aurelius and a lot of Stoics, would talk about like the controllables. Shout out Ross Edgley. I'm reading his book right now. I'm about to finish it up probably tonight. And it talks about like, you can only control the controllables, but you have to react positively to the uncontrollables. You have to practice the way you react to uncontrollable situations and uncontrollable events in your life, because that's the only thing you can't control them. But you can control your mind. You can control your reactions, your emotions, your feelings. It takes time. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of fucking work and effort. But you can do that, and you can have a better outcome of what life throws at you. And that's why Stoicism is really dope. Shout out Jan. But let's keep going. I got a lot of stuff. What we're talking about. I got a lot of stuff. So then let's talk a little bit about the conspiracies. Not too much conspiracy, because a lot of I use the word conspiracy to try to put a coding over a word to people that may not be open to certain types of conversations, certain types of thoughts, right? So like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, you have the Bible, you have all these, the Dead Sea Scrolls, these stories, these ancient stories, right? And the Tibetan book, the Bhagavad Gita, right? So then in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they talk about basically, loose energy. They talk about basically that humans are a hive organism. We're a hive organism, and we create energy. We have energy. We produce energy, and our energy is absorbed, eaten, fed to. It's given to. I don't really know exactly. I just ordered the book. I gotta read it, and I'm very excited to. But it talks about how we create energy, and we're just energy beings, and our creator is an energy eater, right? So our creator just eats and lives off of our energy. So I don't know if that's bad energy. I don't know if they want good energy. I'd like to read the book so I can actually talk about this a little bit deeper, and obviously eventually have somebody on that can maybe knows what they're talking about a little bit more than me, but a little bit more than me. But these beings, the idea is that these beings are interdimensional. So we go back to the third, fourth, fifth dimension of what we're living in. Allegedly, maybe scientists say that they can prove like 14, 15 dimensions, but a lot of people say it's 365 dimensions, right? So like that's maybe our precession of the equinox. That's our orbit, right? It's 365, 60, like 4.5 days or some shit like that. But basically, the being that possibly created us, to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, right? One of the oldest books around, right? One of the oldest freaking books around is telling us that our energy is fed to a higher being, a higher source, whether that's God, I don't know, whether that's Allah, I don't know, whether that's like some people believe, and this is like some funny stuff, and I don't know how funny it is, because you have things like a Brexis, who's a chicken snake god. You have like, I think his name's Pindog or something like that, Pindar, who's a white albino lizard who lives in the center of the earth. Like I have these notes here. But like these deities, they also go back to mythology. So it's not like you're just throwing around a bunch of like a lot of these flat earthers, they're stupid, and they say a bunch of this shit, but they don't actually like try to link it up together, right? So like people like Graham Hancock are dumb smart. Those people are the books you want to read, because those shits will. Oh my God, Graham Hancock as an author, so thought provoking. I'm about to read another one of his books very soon. I'm about to start that. But that being said, a lot of these ancient stories and characters and gods and goddesses that seem so crazy and seem so absurd, and these rituals to these gods seem so insane. But a lot of mythology and history links it up together. A lot of mythology, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, a lot of it, and then the religion is based off like kind of the mythology. It's all incorporated. It's all linked together. And a lot of the stories are symbolic, and you could make them symbolic, or you could try to take them for as literally as you can. Certain stories are very hard to take literally, because it almost seems like there's alien infiltrations and stuff like that. In the Bhagavad Gita talks about that as well. And the ancients were very aware of energies and ideas and perceptions that we're just not really aware of or taught of. And the ideas that the people that run the world, right? All the head leaders that are super smart, right? You know, if you think Trump's a moron, like if you really think Trump's like, oh, Trump's dumb as hell. Like all these books are like, oh, Trump's dumb as hell. He just doesn't know what he's talking. Like, I just don't believe that. Like Hillary, Biden, these people are not like, Joe Biden's kind of dumb, old now, and his brain's kind of falling on him. These people are not dumb people. These people are woke to the world. And It's just what it is. Like everybody thinks about. I truly think the majority of people, especially if you're going to be like a powerful, you know what I'm saying? You have a powerful job, you have a high paying job. You probably come from a good family that usually these politicians, their mom and dad are politicians, lawyers and mayors and governors and congressmen and congresswomen, House of Representatives and stuff like that. They just meet each other, have kids, bring them up in these Ivy League schools. It's very obvious. It's very right in your face. You can see it. And that being said, they're not as dumb as some people try to think they are. And I don't ever think they're dumb. I don't think they're dumb. I think they're corrupt as fuck. But most people in a position like that would end up being corrupt. But they're ridiculously corrupt. And then there's a lot of evidence that they are somewhat satanic. And that's very scary. But you could also link, if you really look at history, you could link like the Catholic Church, the Vatican, with Luciferian culture, Luciferian ideas. In the Vatican, they have a telescope named Lucifer. It's supposed to be a bunch of acronyms. It's an acronym for something, but the acronyms don't even line up. It's very sketchy. The Vatican is just very sketchy. The Catholic Church is very sketchy in and of itself, especially once you start learning about Greek history and Greek mythology and a lot of philosophers from like Greek philosophy and what some of these thinkers did and some of the rituals and drugs and psychedelic things they were doing, and that the Roman Catholic Church kind of took that away because these people could basically meet and talk to God and experience God without a priest, without the Catholic Church, without paying and having to follow the 10 commandments and do that. They could reach this level of being, right? So the Catholic Church didn't like that. And this place was called the Lucis. And the Catholic Church took that away. And I'm going to read that book. Shout out to Graham Hancock. Shout out to that other guy. I don't know his name, but he's Brian something. But he's the author. He's a cool guy. But you got to think about it like this as well. This is going to be thought-provoking right here. So the same way you're going to college to be a master of engineering, you go to trade school to learn how to work on cars. You become an apprentice. You get an internship, right? You work for years and years. And you try to, if you're really good, like a Kobe, LeBron James, they put their fucking everything into this, right? They are a master of their craft, right? There's no such thing as perfect, but practice equals masterism. Practice equals being good as fuck at something, right? So the idea is that some of these people, they were shamans, right? They were shamans way back in the day. And the shaman, you would have the warriors of the village, you'd have the shamans of the village, you'd have like the medicine. A lot of times the shamans would be the medicine people, the ritual people, right? And now I'm thinking about this, I got to look up some ideas about exorcism because I don't really know much about that just in and of itself. That would be interesting now I'm talking about this. But, and the Salem witch, the whole witch trial idea is pretty interesting. Like the whole idea, like it could have just been, supposedly it was a wet season. So the wheat that they were using to make bread and muffins and cakes and stuff like that would have argot on that. Argot is a form of basically psychedelic. You get high and trip on argot. And, you can make the argument that a lot of these people, not just the women, but they would blame it on the women, were getting high on argot. And from the wet season that they had, and they were tripping balls and getting blamed for being witches. So that's actually a pretty interesting argument right there. I don't know if you ever heard that one, but yeah, they were ancient shamans that would work their whole entire life the same way you're gonna work, the same way I'm gonna try to work at long distance running and vlogging and content creating and figuring out how to write my books and figuring out what I want to do in my life. The same way I'm going to grind at that. Or if you're a financial advisor and you're grinding about finance, you're getting your CPA, I don't know, whatever it may be. The same way you're a lawyer, right? A doctor, you spend your whole life to become basically an expert. There were shamans that would do rituals. They would do drugs. They would do psychedelics. They would have out-of-body experiences, right? What would that? I forget the funny name, but they would do this, and they would become experts at this. They would try to master this. They would do this constantly and perform these rituals and perform this stuff. They would meet these entities all the time, and they talk about this. They become masters about this. They talk like Christmas. We'll talk about Christmas. If you don't know, the Catholic Church took the idea of Christmas and spun it for a freaking loop so they could make their own money and have their own spin, because that's what they do. Christianity, right? It's just fucking lit. You know what I'm saying? God, Jesus, we're all in this together. But and then you hear a lot of like, I seen this one video of this guy like explaining how God equals science, like God and science and shit. And he was breaking down all these like atoms and shit is in your body and chemical compounds and stuff. And it's like funny, but like it's kind of like, all right, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting, but like there's like a little bit of like you're kind of pushing, man. You're kind of pushing. Like, what about the people that believe in Allah and Muhammad? Like there's deep some symbolism to that as well that you're just leaving on the floor right there. So where was I getting to? So these ancient shamans would have these out-of-body experiences and they would master it, right? So then you go to Christmas. So they stole Christmas, like I said. The idea that Christmas is really based on the Amanita muscaria mushroom, okay? So if you look at the 1940s, 1950s, you could go back to like the 30s, right? Christmas cards, you'd have little elves carrying little bags of mushrooms, throwing mushrooms. Mushrooms going, you got reindeer, elves, Santa, mushrooms, right? You got all this stuff going on, but it always would involve a red and white mushroom, right? Santa, red and white, okay? The socks on your fireplace, usually red and white, okay? And that would describe the Amanita muscaria mushroom, okay? Santa from the North Pole. Where do these mushrooms grow? In the North Pole, in Siberia, okay? You could look up Evenki, okay? You could look up other Native American tribes in Siberia. They're still nomad. There's a lot of nomad people that live in Siberia with the reindeer. A guy was on Rogan, and he was an American. He won the show alone, and he lived with the Evenki tribe that lives in Siberia. They tame, ride reindeer, and hunt reindeer as well. They don't hunt the ones that they domesticate, and sometimes sometimes they have trouble domesticating because the technique is so old, right? So that being said, they have a lot of mushrooms that grow out there naturally. There's thousands and thousands of mushrooms. Paul Stamets is a cool-ass podcast if you ever want to check that out. Dr. Paul Stamets. I think he's a mycologist, a mushroom scientist. And basically they would take these mushrooms, and a lot of times what they would do is a ritual. They would feed it to the reindeer, right? Because you don't want to take it. You don't want to take a mushroom. Sometimes they didn't know about cooking it. So they would take the mushroom and they would feed it to the reindeer. The reindeer would then piss, right? And then they would drink the reindeer pee and they would get high. So the reindeer is probably high as well too. So that's the idea of the reindeer flying. They're just tripping sack with these fucking reindeer, and they're fucking tripping, and they're freaking tripping together. They're seeing elves and stuff. So the idea of Christmas, that's the winter solstice, okay? So that's when the whole astrology community gets a little credit, because, you know what I'm saying? A lot of this stuff is based on the winter summer solstice, the fall and autumn the autumn and spring equinox. And so on winter solstice, the shaman of the village in like this Siberian place would gather around the mushrooms, right? He would probably feed them to the reindeer. He would gather around hella mushrooms. People would drink reindeer, right? And other people, he would give them the socks, right? Socks full of mushrooms, right? And he would put them over the fire and roast them so they could have some cooked mushrooms, right? And with that, the whole town would be, and there was so much snow in Siberia and Alaska, right? In the North Pole, that he would have to go through the chimney of the nomad. You got to look at their houses, right? They would be basically buried in the snow, and he would slide through the chimney, say what's going on, right? It sounds very familiar, right? Right? Santa's going through the chimney. So he comes down. He gives you guys a few mushrooms, right? Cook it over the fire. And then when the North Star comes at the winter solstice, I think at midnight, right? He would climb to the tree of the North Star, and the shaman would take the most amount of mushrooms, and he would trip sack. And he would tell everybody, like, why your marriage isn't going good. Like, you're being too mean to her, whatever it may be, why your kid is bad, like why your harvest of wheat wasn't good this year, why your animals ran away from you, why you can't catch any fish. And they would all come together as a community and probably like pray and love each other and shit like that. But they would all have this deep experience. But the shaman would, do all this stuff because he was a master of that craft. He was a master of that craft. So that's what's going on. That's basically all I have. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is the Keeping It Real podcast. And this is the New Year special. Say goodbye to 2020. Say what's up to 2021. We got attacked this year. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with COVID, and hopefully we get off lockdown. I hope they don't. They're saying there's a new strain. It's very, very shady stuff what's going on. Vaccine is very shady. Anyone who's just so blind and naive, being naive is the one thing that gets me a little mad. You know what I'm saying? People just like, oh, you don't know what. We got to listen to the scientist. The problem with that is some of these scientists are truly paid off to say the wrong thing. And you can go back to McDonald's. You can go back to factory workers. They just lead, gasoline. These scientists are paid off to say that, yeah, they got a science degree, but they're humans, bro. They're just like me and you. You might be watching this, going to school to get a science degree. Like, bro, if someone's cutting that check, you might do some shady shit. Everyone's got that. You got to always remember, and this is what Peterson and a lot of people talk about, everyone's got that evil in them. We got that good. We have that evil. The yin, the yang, the feminine, the masculine, the God and Satan. It's in all of us. Stay woke, stay healthy. Take your vitamins, drink water, start exercising, exercise your heart, exercise your respiratory, get some muscles, go out and feel good about yourself, read, exercise your mind, think for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching, drop a comment, subscribe, just drop a like, follow your boy on Instagram. This was a good podcast. I kept my cool because sometimes I lose my mind about Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. And everybody's so Obama, I wish he was in office. It's like, no, if only you knew. Oh my God. But it's what it is. What are you gonna do? We gotta get along. We gotta try to stay woke together. The mainstream news is so obviously lying to us, and our social medias are getting hacked by foreign affairs. So that's not good. So think for yourself. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a like, drop a comment, follow me on Instagram. Deuces. Check out my vlogs. Stay tuned for more podcasts. I got guests on the way. Deuces.